The vast chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with the voices of 100 species. Light filtered through the transparent dome ceiling, casting rainbow patterns across the amphitheater where representatives from across known space gathered in tiered seating. Ambassador Sora of the Thaleen stood at the central podium, her slender form draped in the traditional blue robes of her people. Her skin, naturally a pale lavender hue, had taken on a concerning ashen tone in recent weeks. "Honorable representatives," Sora began, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "I come before you again to emphasize the severity of the drought affecting my homeworld. Our reservoirs have fallen below 30% capacity. Our agricultural systems are failing. We estimate that without significant intervention, we face widespread famine within 3 months." Councillor Dex, the reptilian chairperson, leaned forward. "Ambassador, the Council sympathizes with your situation. We have already approved emergency food shipments and agricultural technology transfers." "With respect, Councillor," Sora replied, "food shipments are a temporary solution. What we need is hydrological expertise, water purification systems, and assistance repairing our dam network." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Yara, the avian representative from Celes, ruffled her feathers in apparent irritation. "The Thaleen have managed their water systems independently for centuries. Your people's pride in self-sufficiency is well documented. Now you request direct intervention." Sora fought to maintain her diplomatic composure. "Pride does not quench thirst. Representative Yara, my people are suffering. We have the engineering knowledge but lack the resources for a crisis of this magnitude." "The Council has protocols," Dex interjected, his scaled fingers tapping at a data panel. "We can increase the technological aid package. Perhaps advanced moisture harvesters and filtration systems." "And training personnel?" Sora pressed. "Virtual consultants can be arranged," Dex conceded. Sora nodded, though disappointment weighed heavily upon her. She had hoped for more, but the Council's non-interventionist policies were notoriously rigid. As she stepped away from the podium, she caught the eye of Ambassador Mira, the human representative who had observed the proceedings with unusual intensity. Returning to her modest quarters in the diplomatic wing, Sora sank into her meditation posture and contacted her homeworld. The holographic image of Engineer Tal, her closest advisor and childhood friend, materialized before her. "The Council's response?" Tal asked without preamble. "More technology, more food, no direct assistance." Tal's expression darkened. "Sora, the situation has deteriorated further. The irrigation channels in the eastern province collapsed yesterday. We're diverting water from the capital reserves, but it's a temporary solution at best." "How long?" 2 weeks, perhaps 3, before the capital itself faces severe rationing." Sora closed her eyes briefly. "I'll petition the Council again tomorrow." "Tomorrow may be too late," Tal warned. "The atmospheric projections show no sign of the seasonal rains. We need—" The transmission flickered, then stabilized. "Tal?" "I'm here. Sora, listen carefully. The engineers have detected instability in the Varen Dam. If it fails—" The implications hung unspoken between them. The Varen Dam was the largest water reservoir on Thaleen, supplying nearly 40% of the planet's accessible fresh water. "I'll find a way," Sora promised, though uncertainty clouded her thoughts. "Keep the people calm. I won't fail them." After the transmission ended, Sora remained motionless, contemplating her options. The Thaleen had always prided themselves on diplomatic solutions, on navigating the complex political landscape of the Galactic Council with words rather than force. But words would not conjure water from an empty sky. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. The door to her quarters slid open, revealing Ambassador Mira. The human was shorter than most Thaleen, with olive skin and dark hair pulled back in a practical style. Unlike many council representatives, she wore simple attire, a fitted gray suit with minimal ornamentation. "Ambassador Sora," Mira said, offering the traditional Thalian greeting, palms pressed together, fingers splayed to symbolize the flow of understanding between individuals. "I hope I'm not intruding." "Not at all." Sora returned the gesture, surprised at the human's cultural knowledge. "Though I confess I wasn't expecting visitors." "I wanted to speak with you privately about your petition." Mira stepped inside, allowing the door to close behind her. The council's response was inadequate. Sora raised an eyebrow ridge. "That's a diplomatic assessment." "I'm not feeling particularly diplomatic at the moment," Mira replied with a wry smile. "The truth is, Earth has experienced similar environmental crises in our history. We understand what you're facing better than most species in the Council. Yet humanity didn't speak in my support today." "Politics," Mira said with visible frustration. "Earth's current administration is cautious about appearing to challenge Council consensus. But I have some latitude in humanitarian matters." Sora studied the human carefully. "What are you suggesting, Ambassador?" "Earth can provide more than technology. We can send people, engineers, hydrologists, disaster response teams, real boots on the ground, not virtual consultants." Hope stirred within Sora for the first time in weeks. "The Council would disapprove of unilateral action," Mira finished. "But, technically, if your government directly requests humanitarian aid from Earth, and we respond proportionally, we're operating within Council guidelines." "A diplomatic loophole," Sora observed. "I prefer to think of it as creative interpretation of existing frameworks." Mira responded with a slight smile. "Your people need help, Ambassador. Real help, not bureaucratic half-measures." Sora felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. "How quickly could your people mobilize?" "I can have an assessment team ready within 48 hours. Once they determine the specific needs, the main response force would follow." "Thank you," Sora said, the words inadequate for the gratitude she felt. "My people won't forget this." "That's not necessary. Humanity remembers what it's like to face environmental disaster alone. We're simply paying forward the help we once needed." After Mira departed, Sora immediately contacted Tal again. As she outlined the human's offer, she noticed her friend's expression shifting from hope to concern. "Can they be trusted?" Tal asked. "Humans have a complicated history with the Council. They're offering exactly what we need," Sora pointed out. "Besides, what choice do we have?" Tal sighed. "None, I suppose. But be careful. Sora, the Council might view this as circumventing their authority." "Let them," Sora replied with uncharacteristic defiance. "Our people come first." The next morning, as Sora prepared to formally request Earth's assistance, an urgent message arrived from Thalain. She opened it with trembling fingers, already anticipating bad news. Governor Alea's grim face appeared in the hologram. "Ambassador, the Varan Dam has suffered catastrophic damage. A flash flood from the mountains, completely unpredicted by our meteorological systems, has compromised the western section. Engineers estimate complete structural failure within 72 hours. Sora's blood ran cold. "Evacuation." "Underway. But there are millions in the valley below. Even with all available transport, we cannot move everyone in time." The governor's voice cracked. "If the dam fails completely, we're looking at unprecedented casualties." "What do you need?" "A miracle," Alea said bluntly. "Or, failing that, immediate engineering intervention. Not consultants or technology. We need physical presence, heavy machinery, emergency dam reinforcement expertise." "I'll get it," Sora promised. "Hold on as long as you can." The transmission ended, and Sora stood frozen momentarily. 72 hours. The Council would never mobilize that quickly, even if they were inclined to help at all. Her path was clear. She found Ambassador Mira in the Council's atrium, engaged in conversation with representatives from 3 other worlds. "Ambassador," Sora interrupted without ceremony. "I need to speak with you immediately." Sensing the urgency, Mira excused herself and followed Sora to a private alcove. The Verandam is failing, Sora said without preamble. We have less than 3 days before catastrophic collapse. Millions will die without immediate intervention. Mira's expression hardened. I understand. Consider Earth's help formally offered. And formally accepted, Sora replied. On behalf of the Thalian government, I am requesting immediate humanitarian assistance. I'll contact Earth immediately. We'll need to coordinate landing zones, integration with your local authorities. Whatever you need, Sora assured her. I'll transmit all relevant data and authority clearances within the hour. Mira nodded sharply. We'll save your people, Ambassador. You have my word. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of activity. Sora notified the Council of the emergency on Thaleen and the formal request for Earth's assistance, presenting it as a fait accompli rather than seeking permission. The reaction was predictably mixed, concern for the Thaleen people tempered by disapproval of the diplomatic end run around Council protocols. Councillor Dex summoned Sora to a private meeting, his reptilian features arranged in an expression of stern disapproval. Ambassador, while the Council sympathizes with your situation, this unilateral arrangement with Earth circumvents established procedures. With respect, Councillor, established procedures would have my people underwater before the first vote was cast. Sora replied calmly. The dam will fail in approximately 48 hours. Would you have preferred I wait? Dex's tail twitched in irritation. The Council could have expedited. Could have, Sora interrupted. But would it? When was the last time the Council authorized a direct intervention force for a member world? That's precisely the point, Dex countered. The Council exists to prevent individual species from interfering in each other's development, to maintain balance. Balance. Sora felt her diplomatic restraint slipping. Is it balance to watch millions die when help is available? Is that the purpose of this Council? Dex's scales flushed a deeper green, a sign of agitation in his species. You risk much with this approach. Ambassador, there will be consequences. I accept them, Sora said simply. My duty is to my people first. Council protocol second. And the humans? Dex asked pointedly. What do they gain from this extraordinary generosity? The question gave Sora pause. It was true that humanity had a reputation for pragmatism in galactic affairs. Their century in the Council had been marked by strategic alliances and careful positioning. Perhaps they remember being where we are now, she suggested. Or perhaps they simply understand that some crises transcend politics. Dex made a skeptical sound but didn't press further. The Council will be watching this intervention closely. Ambassador, we expect regular reports and immediate withdrawal of human forces once the emergency is resolved. Understood, Sora agreed readily. The arrangement is strictly humanitarian and temporary. As she left the meeting, Sora received an update from Tal. The evacuation was proceeding, but slowly. Crowded conditions in safe zones were creating secondary problems, sanitation issues, food distribution challenges. Meanwhile, engineering teams were working around the clock to reinforce the dam, but with limited success. How much longer? Sora asked. 36 hours at most, Tal replied grimly. The fractures are spreading faster than predicted. The humans will be there in 20, Sora assured him. Hold on. That evening, Sora received word that the Earth response fleet had departed. Ambassador Mira provided a detailed manifest. 5 major vessels carrying engineering teams, specialized equipment, water purification systems, and medical personnel. The fleet was traveling at maximum speed, pushing the limits of faster-than-light technology to reach Thaleen in time. How many personnel? Sora asked during their briefing. Just over 5,000, Mira replied, plus automated equipment. Sora blinked in surprise. 5,000? I was expecting perhaps a few hundred specialists. This is a full humanitarian response, Mira explained. We're bringing everything we might need. Civil engineers, hydrologists, medical teams, logistics experts, security personnel. Security personnel? Sora repeated, a note of concern entering her voice. Standard protocol, Mira assured her. They're there to protect the mission and assist with crowd management during evacuations if needed. Strictly defensive. Sora nodded, though something about the scale of the response nagged at her. Still, she was hardly in a position to refuse help. The latest images from Thelene showed alarming cracks spreading across the Varen Dam's main wall. Time was running out. The Earth fleet arrived exactly as promised. 20 hours later, from her position in the council chamber, Sora watched the incoming transmissions with a mixture of relief and anxiety. The massive ships descended through Thalene's atmosphere, heading toward the designated landing zones near the threatened dam. Then the first complication arose. Ambassador, Tal's voice came through, strained. There's a problem. The human ships, they're much larger than we anticipated. The primary landing zone can't accommodate them all. What about the secondary sites? Sora asked. We're directing them there, but... Tal hesitated. Sora, these aren't just response ships. Some of them look like military transports. Sora turned to Mira, who was monitoring the situation beside her. Ambassador, an explanation? Mira looked genuinely surprised. They're humanitarian vessels. But yes, some are converted military transports. They're the fastest and most efficient way to move large numbers of personnel and heavy equipment. Your manifest didn't specify military vessels, Sora pointed out, keeping her voice measured. They're not military in function, Mira insisted. The conversion is purely administrative. I assure you, this is a humanitarian mission. Sora wanted to believe her. But the reports coming from Thelene were increasingly concerning. The massive ships were overwhelming the planned landing infrastructure. Local air traffic was being diverted to accommodate the unexpected volume. And the first images of the engineering teams showed personnel in uniforms that, while not explicitly military, certainly appeared organized along military lines. This isn't what we discussed, Sora said quietly. It's exactly what we discussed, Mira countered. A comprehensive response force with all necessary equipment to save your people. It looks like an invasion. Mira's expression hardened slightly. It's a rescue, Ambassador, one your people desperately need. Before Sora could respond, Counselor Dex approached, his eyes fixed on the transmission screens, showing the human ships descending on Thelene. Ambassador Sora, he said, his voice laden with disapproval. When you spoke of humanitarian assistance, you failed to mention it would arrive in the form of what appears to be a military fleet. That was not my understanding, Sora replied, glancing meaningfully at Mira. The Council is convening an emergency session, Dex continued. Your presence is required, both of you. The Council chamber was tense when Sora and Mira arrived. Representatives from across the galaxy watched the ongoing footage from Thelene, with expressions ranging from concern to outright alarm. Counselor Dex called the session to order, his usual bureaucratic tone replaced by clipped urgency. The Council is now addressing the situation on Thelene, he announced. What began as a request for humanitarian aid has evolved into what appears to be a unilateral military deployment by Earth forces. Ambassador Mira, explain. Mira stepped forward, her posture confident. With respect, Counselor, this characterization is incorrect. Earth has deployed a humanitarian response force at the direct request of the Thelene government. The vessels being used are converted military transports because they were available and suited to the mission. The personnel are civilian specialists with military-grade training in disaster response. Yet they carry weapons, noted Representative Yara. Standard security equipment, Mira replied smoothly. For the protection of our personnel in an unstable environment. The only instability, Sora interjected, unable to remain silent, is the imminent dam collapse. My people are peaceful. There is no security threat requiring armed personnel. Mira turned to Sora with a hint of frustration. Ambassador, surely you understand that in emergency situations, crowd control can become an issue. We're simply prepared for all contingencies. The debate might have continued, but an urgent transmission from Thaleen interrupted the proceedings. Governor Elia's face appeared on the main screen, her expression grave. Ambassador Sora, Council representatives, she began formally. I must report a developing situation. The human vessels have deployed their personnel and equipment as promised. However, the scale of their presence is causing significant disruption. Their heavy machinery is damaging our infrastructure. Their personnel are overwhelming our coordination systems, and there appears to be confusion regarding chain of command. What about the dam? Sora asked, dread pooling in her stomach. Human engineers have reached it and begun stabilization efforts. Elia acknowledged. But their approach is, she hesitated, aggressive. They're implementing solutions without consulting our experts. There are concerns about potential secondary damage. Has their intervention improved the situation? Counselor Dex inquired. It's too soon to tell, Elia replied honestly. But I must emphasize that while we requested assistance, the current deployment exceeds anything we anticipated or can effectively integrate. Sora felt all eyes in the chamber turn to her. The moment of reckoning had arrived. She had circumvented Council protocols, accepted Earth's offer in good faith, and now found herself caught between catastrophe and chaos. Ambassador Mira, she said, turning to face the human directly. I formally request that you scale back your deployment. We need your engineering expertise and equipment, not an occupying force. Mira's expression hardened. Occupying force? We came to save lives at your request. And we're grateful, Sora acknowledged. But your response is disproportionate. It's causing as many problems as it's solving. Problems can be managed, Mira argued. The dam failure cannot. Would you rather we withdraw entirely? That's not what I'm saying. It sounds very much like ingratitude. Ambassador, Mira cut in. Earth has committed significant resources to this operation. Resources that could be deployed elsewhere. The implied threat hung in the air. Sora felt the weight of her people's lives in the balance. But something in Mira's tone, a subtle shift from concerned ally to leveraged advantage, strengthened her resolve. What Earth has committed, Sora said carefully, is not what Thaleen requested. We asked for help, Ambassador Mira, not a human armada. A murmur ran through the council chamber. Mira's face flushed slightly, but she maintained her composure. Perhaps we should put it to a vote, suggested Counselor Dex, seizing the diplomatic opening. The council can formally address the appropriate scale of intervention. There's no time for voting, Mira objected. The dam could fail at any moment. Then I suggest you direct your engineers to focus on that problem, Sora replied, rather than establishing a foothold on my world. The words hung in the air, stark and accusatory. Mira's eyes narrowed. Is that what you think this is? A colonization attempt? I don't know what it is, Sora admitted. But it's more than we asked for and more than we need. Counselor Dex raised a scaled hand, silencing the growing murmurs. Ambassador Mira, the Council recognizes Earth's humanitarian intent. However, we also acknowledge Thaleen's concerns. Would Earth be willing to adjust its deployment? Perhaps retain essential engineering personnel while withdrawing excess forces? Mira hesitated, clearly calculating political implications. Earth is committed to saving lives, she said finally. If the Thaleen government provides a specific list of needed personnel and equipment, we can reevaluate the current deployment. It wasn't a complete concession, but it was a start. Sora nodded in acknowledgement. I'll work with Governor Elia to provide that list immediately, she agreed. In the meantime, I request that all human security personnel remain on their vessels, unless specifically requested by Thaleen authorities. Agreed, Mira conceded, though her tone suggested it was a temporary accommodation. As the emergency session adjourned, Sora immediately contacted Tal. Her friend's face appeared, exhaustion evident in the dullness of his normally vibrant scales. "How bad is it?" she asked without preamble. "Chaotic," Tal admitted. The humans brought impressive technology, massive pumps, structural reinforcement systems, even atmospheric moisture collectors. But they're everywhere. Sora, our coordination centers are overwhelmed trying to manage them all. And the dam? They've stabilized the main fractures, Tal reported, a note of relief in his voice. Their lead engineer, Dr. Santos, knows what she's doing. But she's brought enough equipment and personnel to rebuild the entire water system, not just save the dam. That might not be entirely bad, Sora noted. Our system was failing before the crisis. True, Tal acknowledged. But there's something off about the scale of this. It feels like the humans are using this crisis to establish a permanent presence. Sora shared his concern, but kept her focus practical. I've negotiated a reduction in their forces. Work with Dr. Santos to identify essential personnel and equipment. Everyone else goes back to their ships. And if they resist? They won't, Sora said with more confidence than she felt. Not openly, at least. The Council is watching now. Over the next 24 hours, the situation on Thaleen stabilized, both the dam and the political tensions. Under Dr. Santos's leadership, the human engineering teams made remarkable progress. They'd not only halted the dam's deterioration, but begun implementing structural improvements that would prevent similar failures in the future. Meanwhile, as agreed, the majority of human forces returned to their vessels, leaving behind only essential technical personnel. The change was immediately noticeable. Thaleen's emergency services regained control of their operations, and the local population's anxiety visibly decreased. Sora received regular updates from both Tal and Governor Aaliyah. The news was increasingly positive. Water distribution systems were being repaired at an unprecedented rate. Human technology was being integrated with Thaleen systems, creating more efficient resource management networks. And perhaps most importantly, the seasonal rains had finally appeared on meteorological forecasts. Late, but welcome. On the diplomatic front, however, tensions remained. Councilor Dex had convened a special committee to review the Thaleen incident, as it was now being called. The precedent of a member species directly requesting another's intervention, bypassing council protocols, had unsettled many representatives. Sora found Ambassador Mira in the council gardens, seated beside one of the reflecting pools. The human appeared contemplative, trailing her fingers through the clear water. "May I join you?" Sora asked. Mira gestured to the empty space beside her. "Of course." For a moment, they sat in silence, the gentle sound of flowing water filling the space between them. "Your dam is secure," Mira said finally. "Dr. Santos reports that the reinforcements will hold, even if the rains are heavier than predicted." "I know," Sora acknowledged. "My people are grateful for that expertise." "But not for the manner of its delivery," Mira observed, a hint of defensiveness in her tone. "The delivery exceeded the order," Sora replied carefully. "Surely you can understand our concern when thousands arrived where dozens would have sufficed." Mira sighed, her reflection rippling in the pool. Earth's approach to crisis response is comprehensive. We learned from our own history that half measures often lead to greater disasters. There's a difference between half measures and overwhelming force, Sora pointed out. My people needed water engineers, not an expeditionary force. Was it truly so excessive? Mira challenged. The dam is saved, lives were spared, infrastructure is being improved. Are these not positive outcomes? They are, Sora conceded. But means matter as much as ends. Ambassador, The Council exists to prevent exactly this kind of unilateral action, however well-intentioned. The Council, Mira said with unconcealed frustration, would have debated while your people drowned. The blunt assessment hung between them. Sora couldn't entirely disagree. Perhaps, she acknowledged. But there must be a middle path between paralysis and invasion. Invasion, Mira repeated, clearly offended. We came to help. With enough personnel and equipment to occupy a continent, Sora replied. Can you truly not see how that might appear to a vulnerable world? Or to the Council? Mira was silent for a long moment, her gaze fixed on the rippling water. Perhaps our approach was overzealous, she admitted finally. Earth's history has taught us to respond decisively to crises. Sometimes we forget that not everyone shares our perspective on what constitutes appropriate scale. It was as close to an apology as Sora was likely to get. She accepted it with a graceful nod. And, perhaps, she offered in return. Thaleen could have been more specific in our request. Crisis strained our usual diplomatic precision. The tension between them eased slightly. In the reflection pool, their two forms, human and Thaleen, sat side by side, distinct but sharing the same space. The Council Committee will issue its findings tomorrow, Mira noted. They'll likely establish new protocols for emergency interventions. Good, Sora said. Clear guidelines might prevent similar misunderstandings in the future. And restrictions on assistance, Mira added pointedly. Proportional assistance, Sora corrected. The right help, in the right measure, at the right time. As predicted, the seasonal rains finally arrived on Thaleen 3 days later. The gentle precipitation fell on reinforced dams, repaired irrigation channels, and newly installed water collection systems. The immediate crisis had passed, though the long-term drought remained a concern. On the Council's recommendation, most human personnel began preparations for departure, leaving behind only a small technical team to complete critical projects and train Thaleen engineers on the new systems. The massive ships that had caused such alarm upon arrival began lifting off one by one, returning to Earth space. Sora stood with Governor Aaliyah at the main landing field, watching as Dr. Santos supervised the final equipment transfers. The human engineer had proven to be a valuable ally, her technical expertise matched by a genuine respect for Thaleen knowledge and priorities. You're certain these modifications will hold? Elia asked, reviewing the schematics for the reinforced Varen Dam. More than hold, Santos assured her. The new structural supports will withstand pressures 3 times greater than your historical maximum. And the early warning system we've installed will give you weeks of notice for any potential issues, rather than days. And the water purification network? Operational at 80% capacity now. Full capacity within 2 weeks. Your engineers have adapted to the technology remarkably quickly. Aaliyah nodded in satisfaction. Then it seems our crisis has led to unexpected benefits. Often the way with disasters, Santos observed. They force innovation and cooperation that might otherwise take decades to achieve. As the technical discussion continued, Sora stepped away briefly to take a call from the Council. Counselor Dex's scaled face appeared in the holographic projection. Ambassador, he greeted her formally. The Council has completed its review of the Thaleen incident. And its findings? Sora asked, bracing herself. Mixed, Dex admitted. Your direct appeal to Earth circumvented established protocols. A clear violation. However, he continued before she could respond. The Council also acknowledges that those protocols were inadequate for the emergency you faced. A diplomatic way of saying both sides were wrong, Sora observed. Both sides had points of merit, Dex corrected. The Council has established a new framework for emergency response. Member worlds facing imminent catastrophe may request direct assistance, but such requests must be filed with the Council simultaneously, and any responding forces must adhere to strict proportionality guidelines. Progress, Sora acknowledged. Incremental, Dex agreed. As is the Council's way, there is also the matter of Earth's enthusiastic response. Ambassador Mira has expressed regret for the scale of deployment, Sora said carefully. Indeed, and the Council has issued a formal note of concern regarding unilateral deployments of that magnitude. Not quite a censure, but the message is clear. And my position? Sora asked. The question she'd been avoiding. Dex's scales shifted color slightly, an expression of mild amusement. You remain Thaline's ambassador, though the Council suggests a refresher course in diplomatic protocols might be beneficial. Relief washed through her. I'll consider it strongly, she promised. See that you do, Dex replied, though without real sternness. The Council reconvenes tomorrow. Your presence is expected. As the transmission ended, Sora rejoined Governor Aaliyah and Dr. Santos. They had moved to the edge of the landing field, where they stood watching the gentle rain falling on the parched landscape. The first rainfall in nearly 6 months, Aaliyah noted. Our people view it as an auspicious sign. Meteorologically, it's just the beginning, Santos cautioned. Your drought cycle isn't broken yet, but with the new water management systems, you should be able to capture and utilize every drop more efficiently. Thanks to you, Sora acknowledged. Santos shook her head slightly. Thanks to cooperation. Your engineers knew exactly what was needed. They just lacked the resources to implement it quickly enough. We provided those resources. Along with a few thousand extra personnel, Sora couldn't help adding. Santos had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. Earth tends to over-prepare, an occupational hazard of our history. A lesson for us all, Elia observed. Help must match need, neither too little nor too much. As they spoke, Sora noticed a group of Thaline children approaching cautiously. They carried small containers, collecting rainwater with evident delight. One brave child stepped forward, offering a filled vessel to Santos. For you, the child said simply. Water is life. You helped save ours. Santos accepted the offering with visible emotion. Thank you, she said, carefully holding the precious liquid. May it always flow abundantly for your people. The moment crystallized something for Sora, a truth that transcended political tensions and diplomatic missteps. Beyond the Council debates and sovereignty concerns, beyond proportionality guidelines and intervention protocols, lay the fundamental reality. Water had been needed, and water had been secured. Lives had been saved. A people would continue. Perhaps that was enough. Not perfect, not without complications, but enough. Later that evening, as the last major human vessel prepared for departure, Sora met with Ambassador Mira one final time. They stood beneath a shelter, watching the rain transform the landing field into a tapestry of puddles and rivulets. Your mission is officially complete, Sora noted. The Council has recorded it as a successful humanitarian intervention, despite the complications. Diplomatic language at its finest, Mira replied with a wry smile. We both know it could have been handled better. On both sides, Sora agreed. But the outcome is positive. My people have water, improved infrastructure, and valuable new knowledge. And Earth has a slightly tarnished reputation for overreaction, Mira added ruefully. Not tarnished, Sora corrected. Clarified, perhaps. Your people's eagerness to help is admirable. The scale of that help simply needs calibration. A fair assessment. Mira extended her hand in the human gesture of agreement. Perhaps next time, we'll get it right. Sora took the offered hand, then gently adjusted it into the traditional Thaline greeting, palms together, fingers splayed like flowing water. Next time, she echoed. Let us hope the crisis is less severe, but the cooperation more refined. As Mira's ship lifted off into the rain-washed sky, Sora reflected on the lessons of the past weeks. The Galactic Council, for all its procedural caution, had been forced to evolve. Earth had been reminded that help must respect sovereignty to be truly effective. And Thelene had learned that pride must sometimes yield to necessity. Water continued to fall from the sky, each drop a promise of renewal. It wouldn't solve the long-term drought. That would require continued work, adaptation, and cooperation. But it was a beginning, washing away the immediate crisis and nourishing possibilities for the future. Sora turned toward the council transport that would return her to her diplomatic post. There would be more meetings, more debates, more careful navigation of interspecies politics. But she went with new insight and new purpose. When the next crisis came, as it inevitably would in a galaxy of hundreds of species, perhaps they would all remember the lesson of Thelene, that true help came not from overwhelming force or rigid protocols, but from matching need with response, respecting both urgency and autonomy. They had wanted help, not a human armada. In the end, through struggle and adjustment, they had found the balance between the two. As her transport rose through the thinning rain clouds, Sora watched her world recede below, no longer parched and desperate, but renewed and resilient. Whatever challenges lay ahead, that image would sustain her. A world saved not by force alone, nor by words alone, but by the careful, imperfect, essential balance between them.